Were you one of those super gifted kids? Winning everything, being the best at school, praise left and right, and then something just kind of broke along the way. Yeah, same. So anyway, why gifted kids? Despite all the praise, expectations, and hope, suddenly crash and burn. How intelligence actually makes life harder for them, and what to do if you've already messed up. Here's the thing. Gifted kids almost inevitably grow into troubled adults. And when I say inevitably, I mean like 95%. That's not clickbait. And by troubled, I don't mean antisocial or completely incapable of functioning, though that happens too, and we'll get to it later. I mean in terms of discipline. Laziness, procrastination, paralysis at the sight of real work. These are almost guaranteed side effects of being a gifted child. So, let's take a look at how it all unfolds. First, you're around 7 to 11 years old. You're racking up A's in English and math. You just get it, intuitively, without needing much explanation. The only real obstacles are maybe spelling or PE. At this age, perseverance and work ethic aren't even required. Raw talent goes way further. So while your classmates are struggling with addition and subtraction, you're already ahead. You don't really study, and you still feel great. You're smart. Everyone praises you, and you're basically being prophesied as the next best student in all of Japan. But here's the thing. Since you're not studying, you're not building discipline. You're not training focus or patience. And more importantly, there's no inner conflict. You don't feel afraid of failure. You're not worried about being disappointed in yourself. You prep quickly, submit the homework, and come back home a hero.
And because there are no real challenges, school doesn't even feel like an RPG with a difficulty slider. It's more like an auto-clicker. That's why you never really experience failure. At least, not yet. But remember this moment. It'll have consequences later. We'll come back to it. And it's not just about you. It's also about the education system. Most school programs are tailored to the average or slower students. Because the school's job isn't to produce top-level specialists while leaving the rest behind. It's to graduate everyone. So you got an A? Great, bro. Keep doing what you're doing. Of course, let's add a little correction here. Yes, there are teachers who push you to your limits. They raise the difficulty level, give you extra material, and sometimes even straight up terrorize you, to the point of literal childhood tears. But those stories, they're the exceptions, not the rule. And the rule is, everyone's chill. No one's pushing you, and you're not pushing yourself. Maybe now you hate yourself for slacking off as a kid. You're thinking, look at who I could have been by now. But dude, that's completely normal behavior. You weren't even 20. You were a kid. At that age, you're not interested in personal development or self-discipline. You're into bionicles and geometry dash demons. A child literally can't comprehend the long-term value of studying, especially when everything's already coming easy. But what about the parents? They're over 20, over 30. They should understand the value of hard work, right? So why didn't they help you build good academic habits? Well, imagine you are the parent now. Your kid is smart, top of the class, gifted, a mini genius, a damn playboy. Now ask yourself, why? Why the hell would you stress out this kid about studying when they're already crushing it? Why fix what isn't broken? Yeah, sure, some parents are more hands-off. They don't overthink it. Some of them, let's be real, barely even care 24/7. Not arguing with that. But most parents do care. They just tend to invest in the areas where their kid is lacking. Like in my case, no one made me study. My dad would spar with me, get me into fitness. My grandma would read fables and stories with me. So yeah, my academic habits didn't really get much development, but I did level up in totally different areas. And so your childhood passes, full of talent, teachers praise you, parents are proud. But now, let's flip a few pages and open the next chapter. Adolescence. Somewhere around the age of 13 to 19, life starts handing you L's, right between the tomatoes, and from every damn angle possible. Do I really need to explain why being a teenager is hard? Probably not, but the point is, you're now hit with all the standard teenage issues. roller coaster self-esteem, trouble socializing, and, let's be honest, dicking around with life like you're Chopin on a piano. But you get a bonus crisis because you're gifted. What does that mean? It means you're now facing your first real failures. That annoying biology teacher gives you a C, English class throws in some conditional clauses you've never even heard of, your math teacher suddenly acts like you should be solving Fermat's last theorem, and here's the thing, a regular student has already failed multiple times. They've learned to study, they've learned to handle bad grades, they've developed some emotional resilience and academic grit. But you never built that. Your entire academic experience was basically an auto-clicker, not a grind. Your confidence was based on your genius and quick thinking, not on perseverance. So now, when that genius isn't enough, you're not just facing failure, you're getting hit with a full-on ego nuke. And I'd argue this is the real root of the problem. We can talk about procrastination, discipline, and all that, but underneath it all, it's about shame and self-worth. That's the Achilles heel of every big brain gifted kid. See, intelligence isn't just a tool for you. It's not just some helpful life skill. It's the central brick of your entire identity. It's the first trait you were ever praised for, the main lens through which you see yourself. The core source of your pride. So when you finally fail, and specifically fail at the thing you were supposed to be the best at, you're buried under a landslide of shame. Shame in front of your parents, your classmates, your teachers, and worst of all, yourself. I felt other kinds of shame, like not being able to do a pull-up or watching certain movies just to impress some girl. But this isn't the same. This is another level. Shame for your brilliant mind that still managed to fail a first-year exam. That's existential stuff. And yeah, sure, willpower might tell you, don't be dramatic, accept the failure. You'll redeem yourself in the future. Just do what you can for now. But those kinds of lines never worked for me. I couldn't even reach them. Why? Because the inner monologue of a gifted kid works differently. It runs on pure logic and detached intellect. And here's the kicker. That's exactly why it doesn't lead to actual change or growth. This is crucial. So let's first break down why it runs on dry logic, and then why that logic just isn't enough. The gifted kid mindset is like an eye-high build. You solve most of life's problems like you're playing poker with jokers, kings in hand and steel cards in the deck. And if you've got kings and a way to upgrade them into steel, you're gonna keep playing that combo. Why would you throw away a powerful early game build and waste time investing in some other weak-ass stat? Same goes for real life. If a person's naturally equipped with strong intellectual, creative, or analytical skills, they'll speedrun life using exactly that. They'll build their whole reality around those strengths, even if it means completely neglecting things like social or emotional intelligence. Take empathy, for example. A gifted kid might have an empathy stat of 1, but a visual analysis stat of 5. So instead of feeling people's emotions, they calculate them. That's called cognitive empathy, by the way, for those who want to Google that later. Same goes inward. Gifted kids often don't even understand what they themselves feel. They don't notice when they're burned out until they completely crash and burn. And yeah, you can live like that. But usually, you can't for long. Because here's the kicker. Logic doesn't solve everything. Self-confidence, depression, fear of failure, self-acceptance, focus. These aren't logic problems. They're emotional willpower problems. Or in scientific terms, issues in the emotional volitional sphere, not the rational one. I recommend watching that juicy therapist video on this. You know who I mean. But for now, I'll try to break it down in 30 seconds. For logic to actually lead to action, like make yourself breakfast, write that term paper reading list, go run for 20 minutes, there has to be a starting belief that leads to movement. But when you're drowning in shame about your grades, your lack of social life, your emotional immaturity, that shame feeds your logic with garbage inputs. And garbage in, garbage out. So instead of motivation, your logic says, why try? Why try to live if life ends in death? Why try to be smart if you're already behind? Why get out of bed if the world outside is just more failure, more disappointment? Yeah, I'm exaggerating a bit,
But I'm also not. Studies show that people with higher IQs are more prone to depression. And gifted kids often have a worse grasp on their own emotions. Put two and two together and you get this sad, numb adult, born from a brilliant, gifted child who has no idea how to help themselves. And it's not because you don't want to, not because you're lazy or weak, it's because, truthfully, you can't. And that can't doesn't just come from your emotional wiring, it also comes from social reasons. The thing is, we usually learn through other people. We imitate them, we argue with them, we discover ourselves through them. But for some absolutely messed up reason, your talent isolates you. It sets you apart. And that's what we need to talk about now. Why the hell do your mega brains, which are supposed to elevate your status, make you more valuable, more special, end up doing the exact opposite? Quick disclaimer. This is a pretty common thing, in movies and in real life. But personally, I never really had that problem. I always had friends. Bros, ride or dies. I'm a pretty friendly dude, what can I say? So what comes next isn't some deep personal trauma. It's more from what I've read, heard, and studied. Sources in the description, as always. All legendary. What do they say most often? It's about self-esteem. A gifted kid or teen is often someone with a warped view of themselves and their abilities.
If you're just plain gifted with no added quirks, chances are your self-esteem is sky high. You think your music taste is peak. Your takes are based. Applause. But if you've also got other traits, like ADHD, autism spectrum stuff, dyslexia, and all those big sciencey words that could knock you out mid-sentence, then you fall under what they call twice exceptional. And that usually comes with low self-esteem. Now, I'm not going to deep dive into types of self-esteem and therapy solutions today. The point is, distorted self-esteem is super common among gifted kids, and it totally screws with your social life. Because here's the truth. Friendship, closeness, connection, they don't require you to be brilliant, unique, or high value. In fact, intelligence and specialness are rarely useful for friendship at all. Most kids hang out with people they just enjoy being around. Not the ones who analyze or optimize everything. Real friendship needs compromise. It needs a sense of equality. It's about walking side by side, being able to punch each other in the gut, metaphorically, and not take it personally. But for the gifted kid, that's hard. Feeling equal, compromising, tough ask. You're either ashamed of yourself or ashamed of them. You're either stuck in your own head while your friends are laughing at the table playing some dumb card game and you're sitting there wondering how you're supposed to enjoy this, or you're in constant PvP mode, comparing yourself thinking, God, how are they so emotional, immature, and fragile? And that, my friend, is how you get loneliness, even when you're surrounded by people who admire you. Of course, mentorship is worth seeking out. In both research and biographies, mentorship is literally one of the strongest predictors of success, whether creative, intellectual, or professional. But let's be real, mentors are often expensive, and I promised advice that doesn't cost a fortune. So start simpler. Support your grind by leaning on older peers, role models, or just people one step ahead of you. I broke that down in more detail in my relationship tier list, who those people are, how they help, and what to expect from them. And finally, the sixth step, read books. Because at some point, you will catch momentum again. You will start leveling up your talent again. And when that happens, you'll feel genius returning. You'll fly through tasks. And guess what? That's exactly when things get boring again. College lectures, internship tasks, extra courses. They're all built around the average student, just like school was. Same system, new paint job. So once again, that system will tempt you into inaction, which means you need to prepare now so you don't fall back into that same trap of apathy. The earlier you learn how to Google real studies, how to find the right books, and how to choose the ones you actually need, the stronger your development will be. And yeah, this time it'll be on your terms.